We're not buying your good girl act, Audrey. Sure, Mal and Ben finally apologized to you, and Mal's dad saved your life, but none of that would have been necessary if the VKs had never come to Auradon.
You're new here, aren't you? I'm Audrey. Princess Audrey?
Acting nice isn't your strong suit, and that's okay. You're the queen of mean, not the princess of niceness. Seeing you with a big smile on your face as Mal became the queen of the Isle and Auradon was super strange and out of character. So tell us, Audrey, are you really over it? We love Descendants 3, but some of the things that went down in the threequel just don't add up. Keep watching to find out why it wasn't game over after the Ember got wet. Mal gets engaged at 17. Disney has made it clear that their princesses don't need to get married at the end of their stories anymore. Many of us would consider Mal a new age princess, but for some strange reason, her character has some very backward views. Were we the only ones who found it strange that Mal agreed to get married to Ben when she was only 17 years old? Probably not. Getting married is a huge deal, and becoming the queen of both Auradon and the Isle is an even bigger deal. Sure, Mal and Ben love each other and are perfect for their roles, but they're like super young. Ben and Mal were both 16 years old when they first met, and no more than 1 year later, they got engaged to be married. We can't help but wonder if Mal was interested in traveling the world or studying abroad. She seems a little too young to be cemented into a lifelong role. While we love the idea of Mal and Ben getting married, we think it happened way too fast. We owe you an apology. At the end of Descendants 3, moments after Hades uses his Ember to save Audrey, something very bizarre happens. Audrey apologizes to everyone for wanting to hurt them.
I'm sorry. I wanted to hurt you both.
And then Mal tells Audrey that she's owed her an apology for a very long time. Ben chimes in, and Grandma Leah does too. But did anyone notice that Audrey is the only one who actually said, "I'm sorry"? Mal, Ben, and Leah only admitted to owing apologies. But what's even stranger is that Ben never took the time to properly end his long-term relationship with Audrey. Ben is a stand-up guy who can't wait to change the world. He's brave and outspoken, but when it comes to Audrey, he's none of these things. Mal and Ben fell in love very quickly in the first Descendants film, but Ben never once thought to break up with Audrey after humiliating her at the tourney game. He chose to avoid her instead, and then he proposed to Mal in front of everyone without breaking the news to Audrey first. At this point, Audrey still believed that she could win Ben back, so a heads up would have been nice. Is it just us, or is Ben the villain of Audrey's story? The Isle's rightful ruler. Mal and Uma used to be best friends, but then they became enemies. Mal always had the upper hand and constantly viewed Uma as her number 2. But Uma is a leader in her own right. When she found out that Mal had lied to her about letting the kids off the Isle, she ditched Mal in a hurry. But she soon came back to help Mal save Celia. Without Uma and her pirates, Mal would have never been able to defeat Audrey. So what does Mal do to repay? She takes over the Isle. We were convinced that Uma would become the queen of the Isle. After all, she chose to forgo her freedom to help the VKs have a better life. She was ready to never step foot in Auradon again for the sake of her people. Uma would have made a wonderful queen. She was even decked out in a brand new dress when Mal took down the barrier and claimed the Isle for herself. We would have loved to see Uma and Mal rise to the top together. Leave an octopus emoji in the comments if you feel the same. Auradon Police Force. Using magic has been frowned down upon ever since Fairy Godmother locked the villains up on the Isle of the Lost. The vast majority of magical items were donated to the museum, so it's safe to assume that the Auradon police use combat and weaponry to stop potential threats, and not magic, which can cause problems in the future. If there's one thing that didn't make sense in Descendants 3, it's how Mal took down the barrier without a moment's notice. Once the barrier came down, hundreds of angry and poor magical people were unleashed, which isn't exactly safe. Sure, most of them aren't evil, but a lot of them are. It would have been a good idea for the police in Auradon to learn how to use magic first. This way, if anyone tried to take over Auradon, like Audrey just did, there would be protocols in place and skilled heroes who know how to beat villains at their own game. Some extra preparation wouldn't have hurt, and it would have made the merge a whole lot safer. King Ben. Ben has all the makings of a wonderful king. He's brave, kind, and wants to make the world a better place for everyone, villains included. But Ben was only 16 years old when he was crowned king, which is a little strange since he was still a student at Auradon Prep. Elsa didn't become the official Queen of Arendelle until she was 21 years old, and that's quite an age gap. Beast and Belle could have continued ruling over Auradon until Ben was of legal age. Putting a kingdom in the hands of a teenager isn't the best idea. But luckily, Ben was very mature for his age. If Beast and Belle had continued ruling over Auradon, the barrier never would have come down, and the core four would have still been locked up on the Isle. So while we're happy Ben became a king at 16 years old, we're still a little puzzled by it. Barrier breach.
Just a wave of my stick and to finish the trick. Bippity, boppity, boom!
Fairy Godmother has got to be one of the most powerful Disney characters of all time. We mean she can resurrect people for crying out loud. She brought all the villains back to life and imprisoned them on the Isle of the Lost. But for some strange reason, barrier breaches happen every single time the barrier gets taken down. In Descendants 3, Mal suggested they permanently close the barrier to prevent villains from escaping. Beast, Belle, and Mal truly believed that this was the only way to keep Auradon safe, but couldn't Fairy Godmother have used her wand to prevent villains from slipping past the barrier? Instead of taking the barrier down to let people through, Fairy Godmother could have used her wand to let specific people through. This way, no one but the chosen VKs would be able to enter Auradon. Considering the extent of Fairy Godmother's powers, this solution should have been obvious from the get-go. The Ember. The question on everyone's mind is, why was Mal able to use the Ember after Celia threw it into the well? Well, we're still waiting for an answer. When Hades agreed to give Mal his Ember, he told her that she couldn't use it to its maximum potential because she was only a demigod. He also told her that if she got it wet, it would be game over. So when Celia found out that Mal wanted to close the barrier down for good, she threw the Ember into a well. Mal tried everything to revive the Ember, but not even Dragonfire could ignite the blue gem. So why is it that Uma and Mal's combined magics were able to do the impossible? And on a side note, why didn't the Ember get wet when Uma caught it while in the octopus form? Her tentacles were dripping with water. As it turns out, wetting the Ember wasn't game over. So does that mean that Hades lied? Or is something else afoot here? Why do you think Uma and Mal were able to revive the Ember? Sound off in the comments. Dizzy and the Smee twins. There's no doubt about it, Dizzy Tremaine is one of the best characters in the Descendants franchise. She's funky, peppy, and super talented, and in the months leading up to the Descendants 3 premiere, Dizzy appeared in a bunch of trailers, so fans were under the impression that she'd have a bigger role in D3 than she did in D2. But that wasn't exactly the case, and the same goes for the Smee twins. Celia, Dizzy, Squeaky, and Squirmy were chosen to attend Auradon Prep. Disney's Descendants released tons of fun trailers in their honor, but when it came time for them to shine, they were nowhere to be found. Dizzy and the Smee twins spent most of the threequel sleeping, which was a total bummer. We would have loved to see more from these characters, and we aren't the only ones. Some fans even went as far as to say that the Smee twins shouldn't have been included in the movie at all. The people are in a panic. Ever since Uma managed to slither through the barrier, the people of Auradon have been in a state of total panic. So when the Queen's crown and Maleficent's scepter were stolen from the museum, the people of Auradon were absolutely terrified. The thought of an evil villain on the loose was enough for them to board up their doors and windows. But at the end of Descendants 3, everyone agreed that taking down the entire barrier all at once was a great decision. People chose to have faith in the villains, and no one panicked as hundreds of poorly treated angry villains walked into Auradon. Mal's speech was beautiful and true, but not everyone in Auradon was there to hear it. So we can just imagine how many people panicked and fled their homes when they found out that the entire barrier was down for good. Princess of Niceness.
Ben and Mal are the best! I'm so excited for Mal to be our queen.
You'd really rather have a VK on the throne than me?
Let's get one thing out of the way. Audrey has never been a nice girl. The AK was born and raised to be the best and to value status above all else. We know that Audrey didn't actually mean to hurt anyone in Auradon. That was the Scepter's evil doing. But Audrey started singing her Queen of Mean song before ever laying a finger on the scepter. She broke into the museum and stole the crown before going on a rampage, but after being defeated by Mal and cured by Hades, Audrey acted like it wasn't her fault, even though she'd had bad intentions from the beginning. Audrey may have been embarrassed and apologetic, but that doesn't mean that she's given up on becoming queen. And we're not buying her good girl act. Audrey may be laying low for now, but we doubt she'll let Ben marry Mal without making a scene or two. While we absolutely love Descendants 3, some of its scenes have still got us talking. What were some of your favorite scenes from the threequel? Sound off in the comments. And that's a wrap. Subscribe to The Things and don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.